if the three of us are having dinner the night before a game, what you see the next day on the air is what the dinner sounded like.
We're thrilled to welcome Kraken TV voice John Forslund. The Kraken have new on-air homes this season on free over-the-air channels from Alaska to Portland
Yeah.
to Spokane. And in Seattle, that means 72 games on Kong TV, channel 16 using an antenna, and channel 6 on most cable systems. And John, this means you, JT, and Eddie and the crew will be heard by a vastly larger audience than you were able to on your cable home. And so I have to imagine you're pumped about this.
Yeah, we've been hiding. Now everyone's going to see what we're all about. Yeah, I'm overjoyed with this because it was hard. There's two things here. First of all, Root Sports, very much like this Dave Haxtell situation, did an excellent job for us. John Bradford, executive producer, the entire group, and many of those people involved in the production have come over to work for the Kraken now, which is good. But they did a great job, laying it out there. Unfortunately, the market is what it is, and we're at a crossroads with cable, and there's so much streaming now, and that's the wave of the future, and so we're kind of caught in between. And because of that, it was hard to hear the frustration of the fans. It was hard to read some of the media that was surrounding this package and saying the ratings weren't very good. Well, the ratings are very good for a couple of reasons, maybe three reasons. Number one, ratings are great when you win, and the Kraken won 1 out of the 3 years. Number two, the ratings are great if you're, in a time zone where every game's easy, and when you're on the West Coast, every game's not easy to watch. When you're playing 4:00 in the afternoon, who can really sit down and consume it at that time? But you can record it, you can watch it later, and I get that. And then there's the cable thing, right? And a lot of people didn't want to go there, very expensive. I understand. But now the excuses are gone. It's free, it's available, it's out there. If they don't like us, I'm talking about the broadcasters, that's okay. Hopefully we have a great product, and now we're going to be quadrupled, I think, in terms of audience. And there's just, there's a way to watch the Kraken now. And that's a testament to the ownership again and the management of the team. They were listening. They understood. They could have waited a while. They could have bridged this like some of the teams are still doing in the NHL. But many teams are moving on to their own situations, free television, and then go from there and figure out the business model as we go along. That's basically where it's at. But I'm very excited. I'm always excited. This is, I don't know how many years for me. I think it's 41, but I'm always
Stop
excited.
counting. To the extent that plans have been finalized, and to the extent that you're able to share, how will the telecasts be different, and how will they be the same?
Well, I think the marriage between the broadcast and the team now is locked. And there's always a rights holder who pays a rights fee to get the property, and they can do what they want with it. And the team kind of takes a step back because they're getting the money. But now everybody's involved in producing Kraken hockey. The team is. So I think some of the feature stories, the storytelling that'll go on, the opportunities in the pregame show, the postgame, the intermissions. It's hard for us in game to do a lot. We can, but I think we've done a pretty good job. But hockey, once the puck goes down, is a fire drill. There we go. You never know what's going to happen. So unlike other sports where it almost follows a script, it's easier to do that kind of thing. But I think that, and the stuff in and around the team will be team driven. I hope the fans enjoy it. I think a lot of people are going to work hard at this.
One thing we certainly hope doesn't change is the banter between you and Mr. Olczyk.
Yeah.
Now, it seems like it started organically, and I know you've known him a long time and worked with him a long time. Was there a point, though, when over dinner you turned to Eddie or he turned to you and said, "Hey, I think we have something here.
You know, that's a great question. That's one of the best questions I've ever been asked about this. The answer is no. Um, the answer is we are who we are. Um, and to me, that's how you get authentic. You know, when I was a young broadcaster, Glenn, I wasn't authentic. I was trying to impress my viewers and listeners into how much I knew. I think it's natural. How much I prepared. These things are going to get in no matter what. That is a common thing that happens with young broadcasters along the way, and some guys who've been around for a while. Um, I have found that if you're authentic in who you are, it bleeds through the screen. It bleeds through the radio. It's this is how it really works. So Eddie and I are blessed because we have a great friendship. Our first game, although he can't even remember when it was, I do remember when it was, but it was in the early 2000s in Vancouver for ESPN in the playoffs, the Vancouver Canucks St. Louis Blues. And we hit it off right away. I had covered him as a player. Then he became a coach. He was always great to us when he coached the Penguins, the media people. And then we worked together, you know, over the years. And then we'd get together and do national games. But when you do a team and you're together all the time, it's different. It's the best thing that we do. When I was away from a team, I really missed it. It's an opportunity and a privilege to carry the fans from day one of camp to the end, whenever that is. And if you do it with a guy, and JT Brown included, that you have chemistry with, that you see eye to eye with, that you are friendly with, if the three of us, the two of us, whatever it is, are having dinner the night before a game, what you see the next day on the air is what the dinner sounded like. You know, that to me is what the fans want. So I am who I am. I'm emotional. I'm hypertense. I'm all over this thing. I love the game. Eddie is who he is. He can go off the rails. He has a tremendous amount of experience. He's been there and done that in so many different ways. He's a wonderful human being, has a great sense of humor. That works. And then we're blessed to have this young guy in JT Brown who just retired, who's hanging around with two older guys, who's learning how to broadcast, but he's there now. But he also relates to today's players because he's just came out of that group. But he's an old schooler at heart too, and I think that's why he and I are great friends. You know, so this is why, and all of us on this broadcast are that way, and it's not always the case. So I hope the fans understand one thing about me. I don't BS people, never have, never will. So if I say this, I'm not saying it to make us look good. It's what I believe in. We have a great group of people, great team in front of the camera, behind the camera, you know, in a great city with great fans. And that's why this works.
You mentioned JT, and I did one of these with him a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him about what it was like being the adult in the room or the adult in the booth. Here's what he said. When John and Edzo go off on one of their tangents, which we all love, what are you thinking?
Honestly, I'm thinking, what are they thinking? Like, what is going on? Depends, obviously on the top. I think one of my favorite ones had to have been Wrestling Night. That was one where they're going through all the old wrestling characters, and I have no idea. I mean, I watched some wrestling, but anything prior to, late 1990s, early 2000s, I had no idea what they were talking about. So I'm usually in the best of my talk back and, talking to the producers and director, and I'm like, what are they, like, do you know what they're talking about? What's going on? Like, so I'm just having like a side conversation of what's going on, trying to figure out, sometimes I go quick, take my phone. I'm like, who are they talking about? I'll do a quick Google search to see what's going on. But it's definitely interesting. It makes the broadcast fun, and you never really know what you're going to get. So, there's always a good story here and there. And obviously when they go on their tangents, it is fun. I love listening to it, and, I'm baffled half the time. So that's the kind of the like, I just don't know what's going on. So at the end of the day, I'm like, all right, let's try to figure it out, or you just let them go. Sometimes that's the best thing you can do, is just let them run and see where it ends, and try not to pick a side when it's all over. Try to stay as neutral as possible.
Your rebuttal, sir.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And you know what? When we sit on the plane, the same thing happens. And he sits there and he says, I don't know what you're talking about. Now, we're trying to work on him a little bit.
Yeah.
And I have 3 children.
Okay,
And
he hasn't bitten yet. I've seen you kind of lay out when it's just you and him, but he hasn't bitten yet.
no, he hasn't. But the thing about this is that he represents a completely different generation, you know?
Your 3 kids, you were saying.
Yeah. And my 3 kids are 27, 26, and 20. And I understand, and our players are in that same generation now. And I understand where they're coming from. You know, I think as we're in the older generation, you have 2 choices. You can either say, we're better, we did it better, these people don't know what they're talking about, or you can kind of embrace where they're coming from. JT's coming from, well, I know what happened in my lifespan. I'm not 100% sure about a lot of these things, but he does do what I tell the fans to do. Google it. When we do a reference that's, targeted for another group, I understand that. And I know as soon as it comes out of my mouth or or Eddie's mouth, I know we've lost a bunch of people because nobody's that old, right? But we're young at heart.
Some of us are.
Yeah, but we're young at heart
Yeah.
and we can roll with this. And that's the thing about, there's been so many great things that have happened to me since I've been on this package in Seattle and been with the organization. But one of the greatest things that's happened to me is a friendship between me and JT. And I told him at the beginning, Glenn, I said, you know what? I've been at this a long time. I'm my age. I won't say how old I am. I am my age, and you're your age. And I said, I hope we can become friends, but there's no guarantee because there's a generational gap there. But there is, because this guy is a little bit old school in him, a lot of new school, and he's a wonderful person and a terrific broadcaster that's just getting better and better and better. And the 3 of our personalities, I think, play out because JT can play that role. But again, he's not role playing. This is what it is. We watch morning skate, and this is how the conversations go. That's why it's a good broadcast, because it's authentic.